Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. If you would like to support this channel, please hit the like button and consider subscribing if you enjoy the content. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called Job is Done. I work in technical theater design, and I was approached by a producer to direct her show after I had been recommended to her by a mutual friend. Let's call her Jane. Jane had been working on the script for a couple of years, and it was her baby. The script was actually pretty good, and the cast she had already hired was awesome, so I agreed to do the job. The show had already begun rehearsals before I was hired, as the previous director had suddenly quit. After one rehearsal, I immediately realized why. Jane was an absolute nightmare. She had no idea what she was doing. She had never produced theater and knew nothing about any aspect of live event productions, blocking, lighting design, etc. However, she also wanted to control and micromanage everything. A majority of my job ended up consisting of her freaking out about something I had done, then me spending 20 minutes explaining why it had to be done. The cast hated her, and she made every rehearsal miserable. She wasn't interested in watching the scenes to see how good the actors were. She would spend every rehearsal buried in her script and getting upset each time an actor missed a word or said them instead of they, or other minor easily fixable things. The only reason the cast stuck around is because this woman did have some industry contacts and she was inviting them all to the show. She constantly bragged about it and said she would share all her connections with the cast so they could benefit from the show. About 2 weeks before Tech Week, I realized she hadn't hired a lighting designer, booth operator, stage manager, or anyone at all to run the show. She had been expecting me to do it all once the time came. I almost quit on the spot, but I ultimately stuck in because the cast was so great, and I knew the show would never happen if I left. She'd never be able to do anything on her own. I ended up calling in a couple of favors, and somehow we got everything done. The show actually turned out great, and the audience loved it. She had paid a guy to professionally film 2 performances, and she really got great stuff on tape. After the show ended, the cast asked for a list of emails and numbers of the industry that was in attendance so the agents could follow up. Jane betrayed them and refused to share any info about her contacts. She said she didn't want them bothering people she knew. I was furious, so I sent her an email saying, "You need to share that list. It's what you promised. You owe it to them." She replied, "This is no longer any of your business. Your job is done. I don't want you to do anything related to the project ever again. Cue Malicious Compliance." 1 week later, she sent me an email. Apparently, she was trying to raise funding to do the show again and had entered the video she had recorded into a prestigious online theater festival. The audio didn't turn out great in the recording. She realized that she didn't have any of the sound effects, the marked production script, the QLab show file, the projections, the blocking notes, nothing. I had done all the work and had all the files. She had never even asked to see them before. If she wanted to replicate the show, she'd need these things. Otherwise, she'd have to pay someone to start from scratch. If she wanted to fix the audio, she'd need all the music and sound files. She demanded that I send her these things immediately. I replied, "Per your previous instructions, I am not to do any more work on this project. My job is done." Then I deleted everything. She was royally mad. Her realizing she had nothing tangible to remount her show almost made it worth 2 months of painful rehearsals. The next story is called Don't Do It. I worked for a company many years ago, before I got into my current career. I worked at this company for 8 years, starting at 16 in high school. I worked hard daily and quickly climbed into a position of management and was very well liked and well respected by anyone above or below me. During my last year of employment, I had a new boss. We'll call her Mary. She wasn't my main boss, she was in the position beneath him. She and I got along really well, but there were many instances of her stepping on my toes. One of my main duties, which was exclusively my responsibility, was maintaining the sales floor. I communicated with vendors and with buyers. I kept track of all products being distributed to our store and planned accordingly. I planned all displays in the store and maintained them, ordered all needed products for displays, and I handled all holiday distribution, displays, orders, etc. October rolls around and I start developing my holiday plan. Mary keeps a close eye on my plans and asks lots of questions, but she doesn't get in my way. Thanksgiving is over, and we are halfway done. My plan was a success so far, and I'm on track with the amount of product I've been bringing in based on previous year's numbers and how much I was projected to sell. It's a couple of weeks until Christmas, and I'm in the middle of pulling last year's numbers to start my big Christmas order. Mary comes in and sees what I'm doing and says, "Don't worry about that, I'm going to have Amy write the order." I'm immediately confused and annoyed. I ask her why she thinks it's a good idea to have Amy, the store receiver, write the order when I am the person who has been doing it the entire time and has been working on the product, and I know what's been moving and what hasn't. She gives me a BS answer, something like, "You have been doing so much and I just want to take some of the stress off of you." Instead of explaining to her that this move will, in fact, increase my stress exponentially, I just close out my tabs on the computer and smile and say, "Okay then, thanks." Amy writes the order, and after we get it in, I can tell by looking at the pallets that it's going to be a bad show. Way too much of random products we don't need and aren't going to sell through until the next holiday season at least. Also not nearly enough of our fast movers and not enough to maintain current displays. Here comes my malicious compliance. Instead of breaking down these pallets into the designated area of the backroom in an organized and intentional manner, like I have done with all of my previous orders every single year, I just leave them on the pallets, wrapped in shrink wrap. The product stays like that for days and I continue to ignore it. Eventually someone breaks it all down and there's stuff all over the place and you can't find anything you need without moving stuff around. Next, I allowed all of my holiday displays to go to waste. Normally I would have ordered to maintain them, but no. Mary wants to give me a break, so I let them burn. Mary and our big boss take note of this and scramble to figure things out themselves. Next, we are completely out of essentials that Amy didn't order enough of, and now it's too late and too close to the holiday for the warehouse to send us any more. Mary and the big boss are dealing with angry customers who are taking their business elsewhere. Finally, the holidays are over and our backroom is full of stuff that is going to stay back here for quite a long time. All stuff left over from Amy's order. Am I going to palletize an inventory and periodically work all that product? Nope, cause Mary thinks I need a break. The last story is called Check with the Boss. I'm the HR manager of a medium-sized company based out of the United States. We are in an industry that relies heavily on most people having an assistant to manage their schedule, handle their phones, etc. I had someone tell me on a Wednesday that their assistant was leaving. Let's call the assistant Andy. I talked to Andy, who said his last day would be the next Friday. It's less than 2 weeks notice, which is annoying but not illegal, and I understand that things happen, so I'm not gonna put up a stink about it. Andy was a nightmare for the next week and a half. When trying to schedule interviews for replacements, he kept insisting on prioritizing certain candidates because he wanted to do it his way. He wouldn't follow our recruiting protocol and complained to his boss that we were pushing back when we most certainly weren't. But the worst part was scheduling the transition meeting and exit interview. At my company, our policy is to conduct a transition meeting and exit interview together. I do these meetings, and they are usually pretty harmless. I'll give the employee their final paycheck as required by law, tell them about how to sign up for benefits after they leave if they want, share info on porting over their retirement, etc. After going over all the transition information, I'll conduct a brief exit interview, asking them about how we can improve the working experience, etc. I always tell them that this exit interview is for their benefit as a final means of giving feedback to us, but I also make it clear that they don't have to share anything they don't want to. All in all, these meetings usually take somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes. At first I had time on hold with Andy to do an exit interview on his last day. He then emailed me and said he wouldn't be able to do an exit interview because his priority was wrapping things up for his boss. Let's call him Ben. I let him know that I needed to be able to give him his final paycheck and additional information. He told me to just leave the paycheck on his desk. By this point I'm fed up with him, because his emails are incredibly rude, so I CC my boss, the head of HR. Let's call her Carol. I tell Andy that there's more than just the final paycheck that I need to share, and that I'd be more than happy to share more about our company policies in our meeting. I also said he's welcome to reach out to anyone on the HR team to ask. Andy ignores my email. I follow up the next morning. I run into him in the elevator, and he literally refuses to acknowledge me, not even to say good morning or smile awkwardly. He ignores this email too. By the afternoon, I'm over it. I tell Carol, who calls Andy. Carol says, "Hey, I heard that she's having a hard time getting a hold of you to schedule an exit interview." He responds that he's just so busy wrapping things up for his boss and he really appreciates us following up, but no, he won't be available. And if there are any issues, we can reach out to his boss. Cue the malicious compliance. Carol lets him know that this isn't optional and that it will only be 15 minutes, but if he's so busy, we can certainly reach out to Ben to make sure there's time carved out. He stutters and isn't able to make a coherent sentence, then says we don't have to do that. Carol says it's okay. We understand the need to make sure Ben is on board, so we'll call Ben on his cell. And she hangs up. We then call Ben, and she tells him, "I am so sorry to do this, but Andy lets us know he won't be available for an exit interview. Could you make sure he has time for it? We are trying to schedule something and are having a hard time." He asks how long, and she says 15 minutes. He says, "That's ridiculous, he should have 15 minutes. I'll call him and take care of it right now." Carol thanks him and we continue to have our meeting. A few minutes later, Andy comes by and is fuming. He demands that we do the exit interview at that moment. I calmly tell him that there are important documents I need to prepare, which is why we are trying to schedule time. Carol then calmly tells him that there are policies and procedures to follow when you leave a company. The assistant says he doesn't appreciate us going to Ben and that he felt really disrespected. Carol gently reminds him that he said it was okay to check in with Ben, and we are glad it's a priority now. And how does 10 AM sound tomorrow? Andy stormed down the hallway, and we had our exit interview the next day at 10 AM. Best part? It would have been a brief 15 minutes, but then Andy got argumentative and we went overtime. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and want to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.